Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Devam Narayanam Natva Sarvadosha Vivarjitam Paripurnam Gurumshchan Gitartam Vakshami Leshataha. So good evening, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. So thank you for joining this exciting session on chapter 18 of Bhagavad Gita, which, as we all know, is a summary of the whole philosophy of Gita. So we are going to do chapter 18 in at least 3 parts because it's a big chapter, and Suresh Ji is going to coordinate and lead on all those 3 parts. So Suresh, before I just want to pass on the slides to you. Over to you, Suresh. I think you got some IT issues there with thunderstorms in Ahmedabad, and you got some electricity issues. So I hope you're able to join us through 4G. What I'll do, Suresh, is from a logistic perspective, you let me know when I need to change the slides. Just give me a prompt and I'll be there. Okay? Hare Krishna. Over to you, Suresh.
Thanks, Madhuji. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Is the video working? I'm not sure, sir.
Yeah. I can see you, and I've also put the PowerPoint slide. I hope you're able to see it.
Yes, Madhuji. Thank you. So we will get started. Just one sec. Manojavam marutatulyavegam jitendriyam buddhimatam varishtam Vatatmajam vanarayutamukhyam Sri Ramadutam Shirasa Namami. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this discussion on chapter 18. It's indeed amazing that we have done 17 chapters, and here we are looking at the 18th chapter. Before we go into the details of chapter 18, thought it will be good for us to just remind ourselves of the relevance and the importance of the number 18. So we'll spend a few minutes just revising what's the significance of number 18. So the first question there is, there's a relationship between the name of the text which contains Bhagavad Gita, which is Mahabharata, also known as Jaya, Ja and Ya, 1 and 8, and that becomes 18. In chapter 1, Duryodhana takes 18 names. 11 of them are Pandavas and 7 are Kauravas. So there we go again. There's the number 18 which comes. Moving further, there are 18 Akshoyini Sainya, 18 days of war, 18 Parvas in Mahabharata, 18 chapters in Bhagavad Gita. The first 18 chapters of verse 15 convey the essence of the philosophy, and the 18 verses in chapter 2, starting from Shloka 55, capture the definition of who Astita Prajna is. If we dwell a little deeper and get into some numerology, and if we look at what an Akshoyini of army consists of, it consists of 21,870 chariots and elephants, 65,610 horses, 109,350 foot soldiers. We add any of these numbers, all of those numbers add up to 18 again. From a different perspective, there are 18 gunas which are represented by the characters in Mahabharata. Yudhishthira represents dharma, Bhima represents bhakti, jnana, vairagya, prajna, meda, dhriti, sthiti, yoga, prana, and bala, which are 10. Arjuna represents shravana, manana, and vidhyasana. Nakula and Sahadeva represent shila and vinaya. And Draupadi, Veda Vidya. So if we do Veda Vidya as in incorporating the other 16 gunas that we have just enumerated, we shall be able to reach Veda Vedya, which is Krishna. That again all adds up to 18. There are more interesting facts as we move to the next slide with regards to 18. Purusha Sukta, 18. Isha Upanishad that we are doing, 18. There are 18 Puranas, 18 Mahapuranas. Krishna speaks 574 verses. If we add them, that becomes 16, and Arjuna asks 16 questions in Bhagavad Gita, 16 representing the Jiva, 17 the Mula Prakriti, and 18 Vishnu. And most importantly, the significance of number 18 perhaps comes from Shodashakala Purusha, the last question in the Prashna Upanishad, where the definition of Shodashakala Purusha is Prana Shraddam Kham Vayur Jyotirapaha Prutivyam Indriyam Manaha Anna Dannaviryam Tapo Manah Karma Lokeshucha Namacha. These are the 15 boundaries within which the Jiva is bound by Lakshmi, and 18 Vishnu liberates the Jivas from these binds. So just a quick recap about number 18. There could be more. Please feel free to add if you have. These were the ones that I was able to think about. Having spent a little time about talking about chapter 18, what we will do next is get back into a little bit of background and remind ourselves of the background of Arjuna as a character. And this is something we have done in the past. Arjuna is the third of the Pandavas. At the time of the war, his age is 70, and he is about 6 months younger to Krishna. He is trained in religion, science, administration, military. He is well-traveled. He takes care of foreign affairs. We need to recognize that foreign affairs in those days was not today's foreign affairs. There was no distinction between a finance minister and a foreign affairs minister. The person had to go take care of the finances of the state, making sure that they go to war, manage finances, and take care of all of that. He represents three gunas, as just we spoke, Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. And as a character, Arjuna is the Mula Purusha of Arjuna's character is Indra himself. He has an Amsha of Nara in the Naranarayana Rupa. He has Avesha of Vishnu and Mukhya Prana, and in 1037, when the Vibhuti Yoga, Krishna says, Pandavanam Dhananjaya. And the role that Indra played in Ramayana was that of Vali. To add a little further, in Virata Parva, there are 10 names that are ascribed to Arjuna. And we have to recognize the fact that names are not just a sound that is made to call somebody. They actually describe the character, the qualities of that individual. So Arjuna has names such as Shvetavahana, the one in whom Matarishva resides, the one who is knowledgeable and ever moving towards God. He is also known as Vijaya. V is the fourth letter, which represents the four Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, and he has conquered the four. He is Jishnu. He is ever victorious. And he's, of course, Dhananjaya, as we all know, and he's Arjuna representing white, which is Sattvic. As we move to the next slide, the reason we need to get to know these names and the character of Arjuna is just to make sure that we clearly identify and understand that Bhagavad Gita is a conversation between an Aparoksha Jnani and the Lord himself. So we did discuss whether Arjuna was capable enough to comprehend the teaching of Jnana, and therefore karma was advised to Arjuna. Some of those arguments we did talk about, but to me that didn't necessarily make sense because there is an Aparoksha Jnani, and for us to be contemplating about the comprehensibility of an Aparoksha Jnani perhaps is a try too far. So he is Arjuna is a Karma Yogi and Jnana Yogi, And this is a discussion between two intellectuals. And when we need to understand and try to obtain meaning from these discussions, we have to be careful to be not carried away by the superficial meanings of the words. One needs to be able to visualize through the lens of the person who actually wrote it, Badarayana, in the context of the Mahabharata war. Madhuji stresses time and again that it's important to do samanvaya before we take the meanings of any of these words. And we do regularly, Madhuji does the padacheda so that we get to the bottom of what every single word or syllable means. We know that Mahabharata has at least 10 meanings, and therefore the only way for us to get to the bottom of any of these teachings is what Yajnavalkya told Maitreyi, and which Madhuji is never tired of reminding us. Atma va are trashtavya, shrotravyo, mantavyo, nididhyasityo Maitreyi. So that was a little bit about how we go about contemplating the teachings in the Bhagavad Gita. And as to whether Bhagavad Gita, in what way is it applicable to us? It is indeed applicable to us both from within and from without. Shariram Rathamevacha, if we, Dhritarashtra is somebody who is taken the dharana of the Rashtra, and Rashtra, if we say, is the Purusha or the body, represents us and is blind. Duryodhana represents the extreme bad qualities. And if Bhishma, Drona, Kripa, and the rest of them are the Indriyas, here we have an illustrated example. Indriyas themselves are not bad, but when they come under the influence of the bad mind, the extreme bad qualities of Duryodhana, they would do things that are not acceptable. And therefore, either is it for our own evolution within ourselves, or when it comes to applicability to real situations that we face in our day-to-day lives, there is enough and more that we can learn, contemplate, and imbibe from the Bhagavad Gita. The entire discussion, the response of Krishna starts with Arjuna having undergone transformation from the point of actually instructing Krishna to park his chariot between the two armies, to come into a state of surrender. And when he says he is now deluded, karpanya doshaha, and then he just asks Krishna, take me as your disciple, shishyasteham shadimam tam prapade, and Shreyas, tell me what is Shreyas for me. I'm not able to comprehend. And I want that answer most distinctively, Nishchitam Druhitanme. So that's the question to which the response and the further discussion begins. And on the next slide, we will see, and the structure of Bhagavad Gita in chapter 1 and 1 to 6 is what is the classical sadhana dhyaya. 7 to 12 is sadhyadhyaya. And just another point to note, the entire Bhagavad Gita starts with dharma kshetre dha, and it ends with the letter ma. It fundamentally teaches us what is dharma. We did 2 sessions on chapter 2, which is nothing but Gita in a nutshell. We did 2 sessions on Sarvartha Sankshepaha, which is chapter 13, the essence of all the meaning. We have done 13 sessions led by Madhuji on the quintessence of Krishna's philosophy, which is chapter 15. And we would now like to do 3 sessions on chapter 18, which is but the summary of the sadhana dhyaya, which is from chapter 1 to chapter 6. So the sadhana dhyaya starts with the verse 212. When Krishna says, Natvevaham jatunasam natvam neme janadipa, there never was a time when you were not there or I was not there. We are, we will be, and we have been. And Krishna actually warns further in 245, Traigunya Vishaya Vedaha, don't be carried away by the superficial meaning of the Vedas, which says you do Jyotishtoma Yaga and you will get Swarga or any of these material benefits. Rather, delve deep and get the deeper meaning and aspire for Aproksha Jnana. And it ends with the definition of who a yogi is in 647. That's somebody who has imbibed the principles of sadhana that have been described and practices. That person becomes the best of the yogis, is how the sadhana adhyaya is structured. And briefly, I'll touch upon these three other points before we get into chapter 18, because they are relevant and I felt we just needed to be reminded of them. It starts with Krishna wonderfully describing manifestation in chapter 13, verse 27. Yavat sanjayate kinchit. It doesn't matter what it is. Anything that you see that is manifested, whether it is stavara, jangam, sattvam stavara, whether it's mobile, whether it's stable, know that it is because of kshetra kshetrajna sanyoga. So it is always the manifestation takes place because of the sanyoga between kshetra and kshetrajna. The jiva, having thus manifested, is bound by sattvam rajastamaiti gunah prakriti sambhavaha nibhagnanti mahabhavo. So the prakriti is three gunas, which are the abhimani devatas of these are Sri Bhu and Durga, the Lakshmi's rupas, which bind the jiva. And the path to liberation from the bind of these three gunas depends solely on the shraddha, on the mula shraddha that the jiva comes with, the inherent nature. Yoyat shraddham purushaha, yoyat shraddha sa eva saha. So that is what determines the path of the outcome, the path of the struggle that the jiva undergoes to be liberated from the bind of the three gunas. So when we get into chapter 18, what we will do is, we have structured it in three different parts. In today's discussion, as we just saw, the jiva has to do action, and while doing the action has to give up something. What is it that the jiva has to give up while doing something is what Srinivasanji will touch upon as he discusses Tyaga and Sannyasa. What's the action all about is what Neetaji will help us understand. And the doer's doctrine is what Madhuji will cover in today's session. Of course, it will be followed by quiz, and we will end today's session with a brief description of what we will do in part 2 and part 3 of chapter 18. With this as the background, we will now delve straight into chapter 18. So on the next slide, chapter 18 has been described as Purvoktam Sadhanam Sarvam Sanchupyopupasamharatyena Dhyayena. Matters that have already been discussed as sadhana have been summarized in a nutshell in chapter 18. So in chapter 5, verse 2, Krishna says, Sannyasaha karma yogascha nishreyas karavubhav. Both karma yoga and sannyasa, both are shreyas. Sannyasa is shreyas and is a path to attaining the purusharthas, is what Krishna has said. In chapter 12, he says, Shreyo hi jnanam abhyasat jnana dhyanam vishishyate dhyana karma phalatyaga tyaga shantiranantaram. Tyaga is the route for attaining purushartha. So on behalf of us, Arjuna is asking a very simple question. He says, Krishna, you have said both of them are paths to purushartha, but I would like to know Pruthak Keshini Sudana. I would like to know them very distinctly, Keshini Sudana, as to what sannyasa and tyaga mean. It's important again to note that there are three distinct names with which Arjuna addresses Krishna. And the fact that he uses 3 names here signifies the total transformation that Arjuna has undergone from being a very from conquering his own ahankara, when he said in chapter 1, when he had instructed Krishna to park his chariot, to chapter 11, when he says that he is now actually coming out of moha, to now where he is addressing, he's calling him Mahadabhava, Hushikesha, Keshini Sudana, actually having, illustrating that he has understood and imbibed the nature of Krishna as an almighty, as the Lord himself. He calls him Mahabhava. Now, Krishna has also called Arjuna as Mahabhava, and perhaps Arjuna is repaying the compliment here, calling Krishna as Mahabhava. It's important to understand that when Krishna calls Mahabhava, the superficial meaning of Mahabhava is one with strong arms applies. But when Arjuna is addressing Krishna as Mahabhava, it perhaps means that this is what is the eightfold dispensation, is what should come to our mind. Janmadhyasya etaha. So the eightfold dispensation being Srishti, Sthiti, Laya, Niyamana, Jnana, Jnana, Bandha, and Moksha. And that is what Krishna, you are responsible. You are Mahabhava. He calls him Rishikesha. He is the control of Rishika is Indriyas. So he's the control of all the Indriyas in the Pindanda. And he calls him Keshini Sudana. Yes, he did kill an asura known as Keshi, but Keshini Sudana also means that one who resides in Vayu and who actually fulfills our expectations and gives us energy to do our sadhana based on our abilities. So Arjuna has now asked the question as to what's the distinction between sannyasa and tyaga, and how Krishna responds is what Srinivasan ji will help us dwell further on. Over to you, Srinivasan ji.
Okay, can you hear me all right? Or you can see me?
Yes.
Srinivasan ji, you're fine.
Okay, all right. Thank you. So, Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. So, I am fairly new here, so a quick introduction. So, my name is Srinivasan, and my wife's name is Shobha. Her name also, is kind of appearing together. And then we live in Hartford, Connecticut, in US. So, we are just we are kind of newcomers to this group. So, we are glad that that we are welcome here, and then are asked to share our thoughts. So just like how you are blessed with having Sri Madhusudan ji kind of sharing his knowledge with you all and then teaching you all. So we also have another scholar here in US, name is Keshav Tadipatri. I think Madhusudan ji has interacted with him, has introduced him to you all too. So we have the good fortune of doing some Shastra Abhyasa under him. So whatever that we have learned from his teaching to us, so I'm kind of sharing it with you all in here, and then thank you for the opportunity. So the slokas that are assigned to me are the 18:2 and 5 and 10. So we look at the 18:2. So it goes as Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Kamyanam Karmanam Nyasam Sanyasam Kavayo Viduho Sarva Karma Palatyagum Prahur Tyagam Vichakshana. So as per the Arjuna's question, so Krishna had used these two terms, sannyasa and tyaga, in kind of various times in various contexts earlier. So now Arjuna wants some clarification of, for a good reason, because both sannyasa and tyaga, or nyasa and tyaga, are kind of synonymical. So, but he really curiously wants to know, yes, they are synonymical, but then yet, are there really differences that you really meant? So he presses that and then wants to get that one out of Krishna with some clarity for more for our sake rather than kind of his sake. So that is why Arjuna asked this question, and then Krishna further clarifies that one. So he says that, so in sannyasa, especially as seen by the viduhu, kavayo viduhu, that is basically jnanis. So there are, even in here, there are kind of, there are actually two types. One is what is called a niyata kamya karma, right? Kamya karma means we are doing that act or that just to get some desired fruits. So it is a desire driven action. And usually these desires are material desires. That is why it is called kamya karma and niyata karma. So these are binding. So a jnani would not be doing this, especially like here, first of all, sannyasa doesn't mean it is yati ashtma. Okay, sannyasa is one of the characteristics or an attribute of an jnani. So we have to take it in that respect. So anybody who wants to become a jnani and approach jnana, this is something that they gotta have. So it is a, so this, since the kamya karmas are binding, so this jnanis, they usually abstain from it. They don't even do it. Okay, so that is one type of, that is one sannyasa. The other one is vaikalpika kamya karma. What is that? That means one can do an act, something like a Jyotishmaya yaga or whatever, right? So yeah, it will bring the fruit automatically. Swarga is the fruit here. But the doer will do it as an Bhagavat Upasana. He's just doing it as a puja for Lord, not hankering after the fruit that it comes with. And actually when the fruit comes, he relinquishes it. So that is also sannyasa. So there are two terms for sannyasa in here. One is not even trying to do that act that will lead to kind of material things and then binding. The other one is you do the act and then it comes with a material benefit, but then you forego it, right? But then do it only as a puja to the Lord, that will be okay. So this is, both are still called sannyasa. But then, as Sureshji said, Krishna had used this term before, sannyasa, right? In the 5th chapter, Arjuna himself asked the question, right? Sannyasam karmanam Krishna punaryogam cha samsashi, right? And then as Sureshji also pointed it out, Krishna says, yes, both are good. Sannyasa, karma yoga cha nisreyasya karavubhav. So here also he meant sannyasa. Then in the 3rd sloka, I should have put the sloka in here. Sorry, I didn't put it. This is in the 5th chapter, 3rd one. He gives a definition of sannyasa. Nyayaha sa nitya sannyasi yo nadveshti na kankshati nirdvandvo hi mahabaho sukham bandhat pramuchyate. So here 3 additional qualities of sannyasi is kind of mentioned. Your who nadveshti, right? Who doesn't kind of beyond the hatred and all those things, overcomes all those things. Nakankshati, beyond desires and all those things. Nirdvandvo, he takes the sukha and dukkha, lava or loss and everything, all in a kind of equal sense and everything. That's also a sannyasi. So when Krishna had said sannyasi before, now he gives a little different meaning, or in fact, he brings an additional aspects to the sannyasa. We should not forget what he said before. So to be more comprehensive, we have to go back more in the sense, because the 18th chapter is more as a summary or in conclusion. So we should also go back and look at previously what had been said, and then we have to kind of bring that one also to it. So this is like an additional definition or additional aspects of sannyasa. So then there is another one. So I hear Arjuna is asking between sannyasa and tyaga. So having said that, so tyaga is here himself that Krishna says sarva karma phala tyagam. So it is very clear, right? So it is basically relinquishing the fruits from all karmas. It is not abstaining from karmas. You are doing the karma, right? But you are doing it with an intention of either loka sangraha or as a role model for others and everything, or including everything as a Bhagavad Puja. Not with the intention of doing it with acquiring material benefits. That is tyaga. Okay. So that is the difference between sannyasa and tyaga that he brings it out. So there is a tyaga element in kind of sannyasa also, right? But then sometimes there it is purely to do with the kamya karma. Here, all kinds of vihita karmas are included. That means here is you are doing the karma but relinquishing the phala, that one. Then, since we are now talking about tyaga, in the subsequent verse, Krishna gives a further definitions of this tyaga. So when we are doing a tyaga, let us also look at that one. So here he is talking about tyage he purusha vyagra trividaha samprakirtitaha. So here he is talking about there are three types of tyagas, right? There is this always this sattvika, rajasa, and tamasa tyaga, which are covered in this chapter in the subsequent verses. But there are three additional aspects to the tyaga, right? Three qualities. One is, as we already saw, it was relinquishing the phala, right? That is one type of tyaga. The other one is leaving the attachment of the karma itself. Just to give an example, we are all professionals here, so we do this as a part of our career or job. So we do this annual assessment and everything, and then we kind of beat ourselves as to how good we were, what all accomplishments that we made in the previous years, and then so on, right? We are proud of what we have done, right? Or that is the attachment to the actions that we did, or the kind of consequences thereafter. It is mine. I did that, right? I made that happen. I accomplished that. It is the tyaga of that, right? It is the attachment to that one. Then there is a third aspect of it. The third aspect of is ahankara tyaga. Okay, that is the leaving the is kind of abandoning, saying that I am the independent doer. I am the only doer. It's all due to me, right? And then realizing that is basically it is a God in me who is making me do through me. So he is the primary actor, and I am an associated actor, or as a dependent actor. So it is knowing that one at all times. So it is the abhimana tyaga is the third one, that I am the doer. So there are three aspects of the tyaga, and that is what Krishna meant by trividaha tyaga, right? In that one. So we covered what is tyaga. So now we go to the next slide. So when you talk about keep tyaga and everything, we talked about jnani, right? He relinquishes all the fruits. Then we ask the question, does he always do that? Does he relinquish all the fruits and everything? So again, we have to kind of look at it, since it is a summary. So we have to look at even in the previous ones. So even in the second chapter, so Krishna says, buddhi yukta ho jahati ha obe sukrita dushkrite, right? In that one, buddhi yukta, right? I mean, one who is knowledgeable, and then let us take it as jnani here, right? Jahati, he is leaving two types, both dushkrita and sukrita. Dushkrita is nobody wants, so it is so your jnani doesn't want, and then even the regular guy doesn't want, so it is easy. But why would sukrita be this one? Because sukrita again comes as two types. One is called ishta punya, and one is called anishta punya. Anishta punya is the material stuff, so those are binding. So even that he kind of lets it go. Even though Krishna mentions only sukrita, but there are two types of sukrita. And one is, it is the anishta punya, he lets it go. But the ishta punya he keeps, because it is useful for him in moksha too. And remember, it is a moksha is something that is eternal. It is there all the time. Here we are in this material world for some time and everything. So this anishta punya is all temporary and everything. But ishta punya is something that it will be there for forever, with him. So that's why he keeps it, because it will be useful for him. How is it useful for him in kind of moksha, right? In that one is because even in moksha, even though there is people have that as per their eligibility or as per their yogita, they have a certain jnana and ananda, right? Even the same ananda is just like, and to give an example, it is like a milk boiling. We put the same quantity, 1 cup of milk, but when it boils over, it occupies the entire volume of the whole vessel, same amount of milk. But it is called Ananda Abhivritti. So, but it will give the fullness. So it blossoms into a fullness, the same Ananda. So that is a thing that it will help him in most. So he keeps it. So there is a cause and effect associated with that. So he keeps that one. You just to kind of recall that when we call about he relinquishes all the phala, we have to again remember in what context. That is more important, right? And there are some slokas that kind of gives that there is something like a specific mention to it, because in Buddhi Yukta Jahatiga, it is not direct. We are kind of saying there are kind of two kinds. I'm getting another call in between. I'm sorry. Okay, so but if you look at the 6th chapter, the 3rd verse, Aururuksho munir yogam karma karana uchyate yogaruda setaseva shama karana uchyate. So here Aururuksho is somebody who has not obtained the aproksha jnana yet. So who is in the path of doing that, right? So then he has to practice this karma, because to get the knowledge, right, karma is needed. So he gets the knowledge, and using the knowledge, he does jnana, and then gets aproksha jnana, and then moksha afterwards. So it becomes a cause and effect. It becomes a cause for that. But yoga rudasya means one is already in kind of rudi in yoga. So means he has already mastered that one, has got an aproksha knowledge. Even for him, shama karana muchyate. So here shama means it is all that any act and dhyana, what all over it did, it becomes a cause for what? Even if that is in moksha, the same thing, it is an anand bhavati. Here it is specifically says about yoga ruda means it is for an jnani, aproksha jnani. So even for him, there is an cause and effect that manifests. So that is why it's kind of saying that, hey, even when he's doing, there is some benefit for him comes to a later, right? Of course, they are not doing it for the benefit sake or whatever. They're doing it as a Bhagavad Upasana all the time. It comes as a natural to them. But nevertheless, even if they continue to do that, that is, and it becomes a hetu. It is, there is an effect for that one. So that is in that context. So moving on in that one, in fact, the same thought is also said in 18.5, which is also an assigned shloka. So let me do the second line and then go to the first line afterwards. So here it says, Yajno danam tapascheva pavanani manishinam. So first line says that you don't give up on yajna, dana, tapa. Nobody gives up. So it says that natyajyam karyameva tat. So you don't give up on yajna, dana, tapa, right? Natyajyam, don't give up, and it is karyameva tat, and they have to be like necessarily be done. Karyameva tat. So, and then there are two aspects of it. And then even if you do that, then pavanani manishinam is the effect if you do all of that done. So here the word that manishinam is denotes is also like an aproksha jnani. So even for an aproksha jnani, it does pavanani manishinam. So if it is not a aproksha jnani, this yajna, dana, tapa, all these karmas will lead him to aproksha jnana. For already an aproksha jnani, then what does it do? That is what it is. So it kind of leads him to this abhivritti in moksha ananda. So it is useful for both of them. So yajna, dana, tapa, it is ordained for both jnani and aproksha jnani in this one. So it has to be taken together in that way. So this has to be kind of, so it is meant for everybody, basically. Natyajam, and that is what it means. It is basically what Krishna means is it's for everyone, because that is useful even for aproksha jnani. So that is the message in here. So next slide. So what we are seeing is we are seeing Krishna always telling Arjuna, and even here, his karma is something that it has to be done, right? Something especially like a niyata karma, like a karma, right? So it is and it is even encouraged even for an appropriate jnani. But some school of thought have interpreted this saying that, yeah, it is needed, but then it is needed up until you get jnana, and after that it is not needed. And in fact, it is not even applicable. So if we take that view, then it basically dilutes the message that Krishna wants to drive at it, right? He's saying that, hey, you cannot give up this, and it is karyam eva, and it is something that you have to do. And then later on, Krishna even says, because it is the 18th chapter, right? And then it is, again, I didn't put it in here. So he's saying that this is my conclusion, that we have to do this, and then it is kind of definition. So it says, Nishchitam matamuttamam. So when Krishna says it is so conclusively and so forcefully that it is absolutely, it is my conclusion that Nishchitam matamuttamam, right? And then by bringing up something that has never been said anywhere, saying that it is not applicable, right, to a jnani, it not only dilutes the message, it actually goes against the intent of Krishna. So we have to be careful as to in terms of listening to that kind of an argument or conclusion, because even if you look back through Gita, that is not the tone that was being said, or that is not the intention, because even Krishna says, Nahi kashti kshanamapi jatu tishtana karma krita karyate avashaha karma sarva prakriti jari gunaihi. So look at the choice of words in here by Krishna, right? Nahi kashchit, not even one, right? Kashchit nahi, right? Not even one. And that too kshanamapi, not even for a moment that one can stay away from doing the karma. So when such is the emphasis in here, right? So where is the question of exemption in here? And then to kind of further says, so he is even asking Arjuna. Arjuna is an adhikari. He is like a King Janaka, who is also like has to do his karma, but also like a jnani. It means he's a jnani. So, but he has a duty to do, because he has a loka sangraha and also as a role model for others to follow, because these are all in a position of power and influence and leadership role, and they have to do this karma so that others will know from that and follow. Yadyat acharati shreshtaha tattadeva yataro janaha prayat pramanam kurute lokastatanu vartate. So the loka will kind of follow afterwards. So there are indicators saying that even a responsible person cannot keep quiet. They have to do on that one. And then Lord says, hey, I myself is doing the work. Nahi partha asti kartavyam trishu lokeshu kinchana na anavaptam avaptam karteya varteya vacha karmani. So there is nothing that Krishna can gain or lose by kind of doing that kind of action or whatever. But yet he is doing the action of Srishti, Sthiti, Laya, all that, keeping everybody, managing everybody's karma and all those things. He is always acting. So he himself is also acting. The only exemption that was Krishna had said so far in that one is when a jnani is an asamprajnata samadhi. So when he is not conscious of where he is, what he is in atmarati. So he is all immersed in that Paramatma in him. So that is the only concentration. That is asamprajna samadhi. Only at that time he is exempt from doing karma, but not any other time. Yasto atmarati eva syat atmatriptacha manavaha atman eva santushtaha tasya karyam na vidyate. So only at that time he is exempt from doing that one. So, and even in here, in the kind of in the 11th verse in here, we are seeing that nahi dehaprata sakyam taktim karman asheshataha. So dehaprata, whoever has taken a body, saying that na sakyam, he cannot be not doing the work, right? He has to be always, whenever you are given a deha, you are propelled to act no matter what, right? So that is what even said in here. And on top of it, he says that, hey, if you don't do it, right, it leads to all kinds of anartha. Even in the 7th verse that he says, mohatasya parityagaha, if you do that one, tamasa parikitaha, that is the tamasa nature. So again, so given all that emphasis of we have to do with all the examples that are given and all those things, and then also talking about especially only when we can do, that is also talked about, and if we don't do it, so these are all some of the, like undesirable things. Given all of that, so we need to kind of come to make a right call here as to what Krishna intended to convey the message when it comes to sannyasa and then tyaga. So it is not karma sannyasa or karma tyaga, it is karma phala tyaga. So that is the essence that Krishna wants to drive about in here, and that is what I got out of this. So I think there's one more slide. So there is so what is this? Then there is also talked about that three types of tyaga in here: satvika tyaga, and then rajasa tyaga, and then tamasa tyaga. So I've been asked to do 1810. So 1810 is talking about what is this satvika tyaga. Actually, it goes through both 10 and 11, I think, or in two slokas. So one sloka. So here it says that. So there are many aspects of it. It is natveshti akushalam karma. So what does that mean? It is basically like, whenever you want to do some work or whatever at a proper time. So sometimes we show some, like some reluctance, or it's difficult, or, all those things and everything. Yeah, satvika person doesn't do that, right? He goes with all enthusiasm and everything, doesn't shy away from that one. Kushalamna anusanchati, right? And it is not attached to the past good deeds or whatever. He is saying that, okay, I have all of this that can carry me over and everything. It's not counting on that one. He doesn't even look into that, because recall buddhi yukta jahatiha, right? So he's going to kind of give away all of that, even if there is any material aspect, right? Sattva samavishto, right? So it's basically, it's a resident of all the satgunas in him, right? So that is such kind of a person, medhavi. So he has a right understanding of God. So that is medhavi. Sometimes we ask medhavi means he's an expert, right? But an expert in terms of the knowledge of God, right? Chinna samshayaha. So it is samshayaha chinna. So it's basically he has a doubt, no doubt on whatsoever on paratatva or aparatatva or something to do with dharma, anushtana, and in any of that one, he doesn't have any doubt. So he's clear what he's doing. He's clear what is need to be done, and he also has right understanding of the God. Such person is a tyagi. He is especially the one who has given up all the fruits of actions, doesn't hanker after that one. So such person is a sattvika tyagi. So that is the meaning of this one. So I think this is my last slide. So again, Krishnarpanamastu. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity to share at least whatever that I have gotten out of doing some little manana of these few verses. Thank you. Krishnarpanamastu.
Thank you, Srinivasanji. So thanks a lot. So what we are getting to is that yajna, dana, tapa are in fact inevitable, and even for the approksha jnani, they do enhance the phala that they get. Just to remind ourselves that we did touch upon Trikarma Krit when we did the Katha Upanishad as well, where again we discussed about yajna, dana, and tapaha. So the definition of yajna, we have done it enough number of times. Yet, it's Sangati Karana, Puja. And in fact, in 432, when Krishna says, Evam Bahuvida Yajna, he just summarizes the different types of yajnas and emphasizes saying that it's important to understand what yajna is in the path towards liberation. While we do these, 18.6 will come late, and it says that all acts must be performed without attachment. Sangam tyaktva phalanicha. And again, just to remind ourselves, in 262, Krishna very clearly says, Dhyayate vishayan pumsaha sangaste shupajayate sangat sanjayate kama. So what are the adverse impacts, adverse effects of attachment are clearly described there, and we need to do all activities without sangam tyaktva phalanicha, without attachment and without aspiration for the fruits. Dana we talked about, the right dana, which is given to the right person at the right time, in the right way, and not just because we want to get rid of some things. And again, all the actions that we do, kaya, vacha, manasa, which will again be touched upon in 1815 when Netaji talks about these shlokas, and that's described in 17, 14, 15, and 16, and we have done the 17th chapter. So just to remind ourselves that we have touched upon these, and they are, so it's important to remember and correlate as we go further into discussion on chapter 18. If you move to the next slide, just from the point of completion, 18:7, 8, and 9 described 3 types of tyaga. I mean, we just understood what the sattvic approach to tyaga is when actions are undertaken in response to duty. Karyamityeva yat karmam nityam kriyate arjuna. So they are done without attachment and without aspiration for fruit. If prescribed duties are not done because of fear of bodily harm, because of fear of sorrow or any such of passion, etc., they become rajasic. And if there is dereliction of duty because of ignorance, then it becomes tamasic. We need to do duty. That's pretty clear. Our prescribed duties have to be done no matter what. But then there is the way we do it, perhaps, I mean, is also equally important than just doing it. And in 16th chapter, Krishna talks about the Daivi and the Asuri Sampat. And he says that if actions are done with Asuri Sampat, he says, Asurim Yonima Pannaha Mudha Janmani Mama Prapsaiva Kaunteya Tato Yat Adhamam Gatim. I will make sure that there is downfall for these people who will be constantly stuck in this cycle of birth and death. However, if there are these 3 tamodwara that he has already described about earlier in 16th chapter, if somebody conquers them, then he says their actions, acharatmana, their actions are such a way that they are shreyas and they do get, they do achieve the purushartha. Tasmat Shastram Praman. Therefore, it's important for us to do our actions as prescribed in the Shastras. What do our Shastras say about action? How do we understand action? The doctrine of action is what Netaji will help us understand in the next section. Netaji, over to you, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. So thank you very much, Sureshji and Madhuji, for this opportunity. So let's move on to, so what Srinivasji has already explained to us is to give up the mamakara, to give up mamatva. How easy is it? Not very easy. So Shri Krishna is making it easy for us by giving us more details to understand the actions, what the factors are involved in action. So what I'll do today is I'll go through why it is important, what are the factors, we'll discuss some examples, and I'll also like to have some volunteers who can discuss some examples, and what happens if you don't understand these things. So it starts off in 13th verse by saying, Panchaitani Mahabhavo Karanani Nibodhame Sankhye Kritante Proktani Siddhaye Sarvakarmanam. Sarvakarmanam, all the karmas. So, and we've seen many examples in Bhagavad Gita that although Krishna is the person who's giving us all the knowledge, he still quotes other things, saying this is also described in Sankhya, this is also described by Munis, this is also described. So he's also giving this example of a Sankhya doctrine, system of philosophy. Now, this is a philosophy that was originated by Maharshi Kapila, who's also avatar of Vishnu, Sri Vishnu, and he is a son of Kardama Muni and Devahuti. Now, a little question here about Devahuti. Do we know whose daughter is Devahuti? I'll give you a clue. We are doing the Upanishad right now. We are studying that Upanishad. Correct. Thank you, Pratibhaji. So, and also he describes Kapila Muni in one of the Vibhutis in 10th chapter. like Ashwatta Sarvavrukshanam, Devarshinam Chanaradaha, Gandharvanam Chitrarataha, Siddhanam Kapilo Munihi. So it's also described in this. So he says to Arjuna, I'm going to just tell you 5 factors that are required in accomplishing all actions. And he's addressing Arjuna as Mahabahu. And Sureshji has already given us the meanings of different names of Arjuna and also a little bit touched on Mahabahu. Leshri Bananji has explained about another meaning of Mahabahu. Ba means desire. So one means, again, Arjuna is representing all of us. So the one who has all desires, we all have lots of desires. Now, the question is, why do we need to know these 5 factors? Now, again, Srinivas just mentioned that we have to give up the pride of doership, that I did this or I accomplished this. And that is why so we need to know the factors, then only we'll be able to give this up. A little bit easy, but it's not as easy. And that's why it is repeated many times in Bhagavad Gita to give up these. Next slide, please, Madhuji. So what are the 5 factors that he has explained? Adhishtanam, tatha karta, karanam cha prathak vidham, vividhascha prathak cheshtaha, daivam chaivatra panchamam. So Adhishtanam, the abode, or the body, or earth, or platform, it can be viewed like Brahmanda or Pindanda. So you can use this for both the ones, the Brahmanda and Pindanda. So Karta, again, we all know independent Karta is Sri Vishnu, dependent Karta is Jiva. Karanam, all the instruments of action or senses or indriyas. Prathak cheshtaha, many efforts or activities done by the body, mind, etc. And Daivam, a virtue or the punya or papa that has been accumulated, and also Sri Vishnu, who is the ultimate person who controls all actions. So I put a picture of the chariot and Krishna and Arjuna. So we can look at this from the 5 factors, right? So Adhishtanam, the abode. So one is the Kurukshetra, or the place or the earth where the fight is going on. And also Arjuna, the body. Thanks, Madhuji, for pointing them out. And Karta, who is Krishna, Sri Vishnu, who is sitting there. And the dependent Karta, if you look at it that way, this is the Jiva within Arjuna. Karanam, instruments of action. Now, Arjuna is fighting this war using lots of instruments like Gandhi, but then he's got the bow and arrow. He's got Ratha, and he's got all the horses that are taking him to the desired spot. He's got Kapidwaja, or Hanumanji, who's sitting there helping him as well in this war. We've gone through this in the past as to why that Kapidwaja is there. So he's got all this, plus he has also got all his senses, like his eyesight, his hearing, his arms, his strength. He's got all that to help him fight the war. So those are the Karanam. Cheshta, effort. He has had lots of training in archery, and Sureshji has clearly mentioned all the qualities that Arjuna has, which are required for this fight. So I won't go through those again. Daivam, he's got Vishnu or Sri Krishna with him. Now, if there's one more question I would like to ask, if you remember what happens when when Arjuna is bringing back Yadava Stris back from Dwarka, what happens to Arjuna at that time? He has his Gandiva, he has his Ratha. Can anyone explain?
He gets defeated in the war. He wants to protect the rishi, who are they? There's some
They're all the ladies.
Ladies, but he's not able to protect them because he can't. Lord Krishna is not there with him, though
Correct.
He has the Gandiva and everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you, Pratibha ji, in explaining that. So he had everything, but the virtue or Lord Krishna was not there. So again, a clear example there. And so we'll keep this slide on, and I would like to ask any volunteers to see if anyone can come up with a day-to-day living example of any activity that you've done today, this morning, yesterday. Anyone wants to give an example of?
Yeah,
Hello.
and shall I go?
Oh, hello, Binaji. Yes, thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, okay, so thank you for volunteering. Do you want to describe an activity, a day-to-day activity?
What is coming in my mind is just a daily routine. Maybe like cooking, anything that. So maybe cooking the rice. So
Okay,
the five
that's very good example. Yeah, very good example. Yeah.
The 5 factors involved in cooking a rice, that adhisthana is the like the abode, that the place. It might be a kitchen or some place in the garden where the barbecue is happening and I want to cook rice or anything. And karta is me, myself, or the cook who is cooking the rice. And karanam are the utensils and the stove and some cleaned rice and water. Then activity, like, okay, for cooking the rice, first we wash the rice, then add the water to it, keeping that that utensil on the stove, and switch on the stove and switch off the stove. All these are the activities involved. The main important is the daivam. So I have all utensils, I have like everything with me. But if there is no daivam, if there is no prerana to cook the rice in me, then the having rice is like the raw rice is of no use. And there should be like God's grace that people who clean that rice should have done their work properly. Otherwise, if some small stone comes in that rice, whatever they have done, that all go in waste. And also, like, I should be able to put a proper amount of water, proper quantity of water. Otherwise, the rice will become hard or that. So all this requires God's grace, and also the prerana to, like, I should not be disturbed by phone calls or by the doorbell while cooking the rice. So otherwise, I'll go there and the rice will burn, and that may happen. So whatever everything is there, the daivam is most important. So that I have to switch off the stove so that I get a good quality of rice prepared. Yeah. So I think this is what came to my mind.
That's beautiful. Very well explained, Viraji. As you see, and same way, every action, however small it is, can be broken down into these 5 components of factors. And also to add to Viraji's example, we have not grown that rice to be proud that, oh wow, I cooked the rice perfectly. Doesn't happen all the time. And we have not grown that rice. We have not created that rice. So where's the pride in that? We don't do that. So I hope this has made it clear. So next slide, please. So Shri Krishnaji continues to explain that these 5 factors are true for all types of activities, whether it is the right or the wrong activity. So nyayam va viparitam va. If you look at the second line, panchaitani tasya hetavaha. So whether it's the right or the wrong action. And all the actions done by body, speech, and mind. So kaya, vacha, and manasa. So sharira, vang, mano, bhiryat, yat karma, prarabhate naraha. So all the 3. So you can see the dancing, speech, and the mind. So there are a few examples. We could go through details, but because of time, so I've just put examples of an action or a drama going on the stage. You can again analyze that using all the 5 factors. Same with the bodily actions or eating. We don't have control over our digestion. So again, so break them down, and maybe as a homework, you could sort of try and break them down into these 5 factors. And again, showing the thief as an example. So that is a viparita action, or the actions that we shouldn't be doing. But even then, all these 5 factors are required for that. Next one, please. So what about those who, if this is the case, if one asserts himself as an independent doer, he does not see the truth, which means that his buddhi or intellect has not developed well enough. So that is what it is saying here. Tatraivam sati kartaram atmanam kevalam tu yaha pashyat akrita buddhitva na pashyati durmatihi. So I think again, Srinivas mentioned about buddhi yukto. This is opposite of that. It means akrita buddhitwan means that it's not, the buddhi is not very well developed. So thinking of all this, the most important thing to remember is that we've heard this many times. It's naham karta hari karta tat puja karma chakhilam. So this, the whole shloka that goes there is by Sri Madhvacharya in Gita Chapter. See, I'm not the doer. Sri Hari is the doer, and all actions that I do are his worship. Even then, the worship I do is through his grace and not otherwise. So the devotion and the fruits of action that come to me are because of his recurring grace. Tat prasadat punah punah. So we have to remember that it is Naham Karta Hari Karta. So that is why we have to practice. Any action has to be dedicated to Sri Hari. Next slide, please. So again, Srinivas has already described about karma in very detail, and tyaga also. But the 3 things, important things we have to remember about karma is it has to be a nishkama karma. Again, if anyone wants to do a bit of homework, it's the 3 key verses for nishkama karma in Bhagavad Gita: 248, 330, and 510. And the karma has to be appropriate for the varna that we are doing, or the jobs that we are doing. For example, Dronacharya was a Brahmana. Sees that for his varna, it was not the right thing to get into the war. And also the third important part of the karma, it has to be done with Bhagavad Arpana. So dedicating to Lord. So one take-home message I would say is, when we are thinking of, or even whether we are saying it, we shouldn't be, with a lot of practice, we try not to say it, or if we're thinking it in our mind, like I did this, I accomplished this. When you think of that, think of the 5 factors that are involved, and then think whether it was really I there. And I think knowing this would help us get rid of that mamakara, or, I mean, it's so very difficult. It's easier said than done. So think of these 5 factors. That's all I want to say. Thank you again.
Thanks, Neetaji. So the next slide is basically, it's just a structure to what Neetaji has already said. An example I would add is, just before the meeting this evening started, we had issues of thunderstorms, electricity, and the difficulty to set in. So we'll move on. It's here. We discussed enough on this topic, just in the interest of time. On the next slide, Madhuji. So Krishna has been pretty clear that in terms of doership, he says, "Yaenam vekti hantaram yaschainam manyate." People think that I have killed or die. I mean, none of this is true. I mean, you saw that nobody can kill anybody and nobody dies. Prakrute kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha ahankaram. I mean, nothing happens that is not supposed to happen. It's all a result of the gunas and the jiva swabhav. But because of ignorance, people tend to believe that I did it. I am the doer. Actually, in the example that Neetaji was just saying, if the karta is the Lord himself, the jiva simply doesn't even appear in that example. And therefore, Krishna says, Mai sarvani karmani. So just do your action and make sure that you dedicate everything to me. Going further in chapter 16, while he is describing Asuri Sampat, he calls all of these characteristics as Asuri Sampat, such as Idamatya Maya Labdam, I have earned something. Idam Prapse Manoratham, I will make sure that I will achieve my desires. Idamasti Idamapi Me Bhavishyati Punardanam, I have conquered a few of these, I will conquer more in time to come. Asau Maya Hata Shatruhu, I have killed my enemies, I will kill others. Ishwaro Mahambogi Siddho, so I am Konyos to Sadrusho. Who is there actually equal to me? I am happy, I am supreme. That the word I, as and where it comes, tends to just classify all of them as Asuri Sampat. And of course, it culminates, at least in my mind, when Krishna tells Arjuna in the 11th chapter, Tasmat Uttishta Yasholabhasva, get up, stand up and go, win the war. You know why? Because Mayaivaite Mehta Kurumime, I have already killed all of them. You are but an instrument. Nimitta Matram Bhavasavvesachin. And that gets re-emphasized time and again during the discourse of Bhagavad Gita. But some questions do arise. Factually, I am doing it. I am speaking right now. So what's wrong in making a statement that is factually true, that I did this or I did that? Okay, even if we admit that everything is done by the Supreme and nothing is in my control, why on earth should I bear the consequences of any action? Why are actions binding on to me? Further, if I do not control anything, why should there be nisheda for me? Why should there be restrictions? Do this, don't do that. So these lead to certain fundamental contradictions. And to understand what is this doership all about, Madhuji, if you could help us again, please.
So Suresh, thank you so much. So lots of discussions on karma and why we do action, in what spirit we should be doing action. Neetaji was mentioning about 5 components of action. So in this verse, 18th verse, and again, we don't have time to go through this in detail, but the first line, Jnanam, Jneyam, Parignyata. So here, Trivida. So now for our benefit, because we are so dull and dumb that we can't even put those 5 components of action, 5 components of karma into, contemplation. Krishna says, at least think about 3, guys, at least think about 3. So he's talking about the 3 components here. What has he said in the first line? Jnanam, Jneyam, and Jnata. So these are the motives of action. So again, the key idea here is for us, we should never shy away from going to the fundamentals and getting our foundations absolutely right. Once we get our foundations right, then we can grasp the beauty of what Krishna is saying in his philosophy. So here, motive of action. What is the motive of action? Knowledge, object of knowledge, and the knower. So Jneya is the object of knowledge. Jnata is the person who is perceiving that object. And when he perceives, he gets jnana. Okay, Jneya, Jnata, Jnana. And then in the second line, he said, Karanam, Karma, Karta iti Trividaha Karma Sangraha. Okay, the cause of action. What do you need for the cause of action? You need tools, the act, and the doer. Okay, so Karta. So Karanam, Karma, so Karanam and Karta and Karma. So Neetaji has very clearly explained to us Karanam and Karta. Okay, so look at those 2 words, and I've highlighted that in red for us. Jnata and Karta. Okay, Jnata and Karta. So here is the core fundamentals that we never should forget. Who is a Jnata and who is a Karta? Is it the Jiva or the mind stuff or the Antakarana? So we need to make this distinction first, because there are certain schools of Vedanta that think about the fact that actually the Jiva is not the doer. The Jiva does not receive any knowledge. Everything stops at the mind and the Antakarana, the mind components, everything stops there, and the Jiva is some inert, underlying thing that is just there. So we need to think about this problem. So the philosophy there is, who is the Jnata or the Karta? Here is a basic figure that we have done few years ago. The spiritual effort or the sadhana is not something done by the mind or the antakarana. It is an action of the soul. It is about our journey of souls, isn't it? And if we don't do the action, we are not going to reach our destination. So that spiritual effort or sadhana, which is a karma, is the action of souls. We, of course, use our pindanda. We use our body. We use our various karma indriyas, vak, pani, padu, payu, and upastha to do various things. And how does it work? The philosophy there is, there has to be a sentient being that drives all this. The sentient being has to drive action. Just as how the sentient being receives knowledge and becomes known, similarly, the sentient being must be the source of action. Veda Vyasa in Rachana Adhikaranam, he has settled this. Rachana anupapatteshta na anumanam pravuruteshta. Payombuvache tatrapi, and he gives beautiful analogies to say that the ability for self-initiated action only comes from a sentient being. Mind, antakarana, they are all made of matter and they are jadas, period. Yeah. They do not have the ability for self-initiated action. It is only a sentient being that has the ability for self-initiated action. So that is the first argument that we have to understand. That we as souls, we are doing something here. We are doing some action. Acharya actually gives an anumana here. Yatra chetanatvam, tatra kartrutvam. Yatra achetanatvam, tatra kartrutva abhavaha. Yatra yatra bhoktrutvam, tatra kartrutvam. Yatra kartrutva abhavaha, tatra bhoktrutva abhavaha. So these are simple logic that tells us that there has to be a chetanatva, there has to be a sentiency equals doership. So that is the first argument that we have to understand. We have to get these basics right before we kind of contemplate on sannyasa, tyaga, karma yoga, and the stuff that Gita is talking about. Okay, so we understand Jiva is the doer. Okay, so we all know this famous verse as karmanyeva adhikaraste ma paleshu kadachana ma karma pela hetur bhum te sangostu akarmani. So we know all these verse, very popular verse, but this is very important. Why has Krishna said that in 247? For that, we need to get this basics right, that Jiva is the doer. We have done this in Isha Upanishad, right? Second verse, kurvanneve iha kuru karmani. Jijiji vishet shatang samaha evam tvai na anyato asti na karma lipyate nare. Look at this. There is a clue here. Kuruvanne eva iha. Okay, that iha becomes very important. Hold on. We have done that class about iha. What does that iha mean? In a Isha Upanishad, Swayambhu Manu has got Yajnanamaka Paramatma next to him. So iha karmani, do your actions as a submission to this Yajnanamaka Paramatma is one rendering there about Kuruvanne iha. So remember that. But Isha also talks about this. And of course, in Bhagavatam, we know that Kayena Vacha Manasendriya Eva, that verse we are all very familiar. So Jiva is the doer. But here is a problem of philosophy. So the Catholicism, Saint Augustine of Hippo, one of the great Catholic philosophers, in his book called The Confessions, he makes a very profound statement. He is asking basic question. Is God willing to prevent evil, but not able? Because it is us as jivas who are doing evil, right? But is God willing to prevent evil, but not able? Then he is not omniscient and not powerful. Is he able to, but not willing? Then he is malevolent. He is wishing evil for us. Is he both able and willing? Then whence comes the evil? Is he neither able nor willing? Then why call him God? So these are all key philosophical questions that Saint Augustine of Hippo asks. If this Paramatma is so all-powerful, he is Sarvajna, he is Sarvakarta, why is he not making the jivas to do always good things? Why is it that some of us, every day we are doing some bad acts in our lives? Why is that happening if this God is so omnipotent? Epicurus also asked the same question. Who made me? Did not God, who is not only good, but goodness itself, make me? Whence then can I do evil and will good so that I am thus justly punished? This is an important question that Epicurus asks. Who sets this in me and implanted in me this plant of bitterness, seeing that I was made holy by my sweet God? Okay. Vedic philosophy will 100% agree with the sentiments that have been expressed by Saint Augustine and Epicurus, except that Veda Vyasa actually had the solution as to why this is happening. The fundamental question is not answered by many philosophies. Vedic philosophy actually solves this puzzle effortlessly. How does Veda Vyasa do this? What is origin and source of free will? The doership. We are talking about karma, right? To do a karma, you need to have some kind of a free will, which is a very important topic in philosophy. What is the origin and source of free will? Our ability to initiate and perform actions that have obvious consequences in ours and others' life. Why do some perform good deeds, whereas we also see the worst among men in our society? Why is someone a millionaire, whereas another one cannot afford a meal a day? How can an omnipotent God, if he really exists, cannot and does not transform all things bad to good instantly? Does this mean God is partial and cruel? Or even more important, is this the final proof that God actually does not exist? Okay, so these are all the questions that have been taken up by our Vedic philosophers, and they've actually solved these puzzles effortlessly. Here is what our philosophy says. Jiva is a doer. Okay, I'll just take Veda Vyasa's Kartrutva Adhikaranam and then take this sutra. Karta Shastra Artavatvat. So the Vedas tell us what is Vidhi and what is Nisheda. What are all the actions to be done? What are all the actions to be avoided for us to make our journey? Okay, the Vedas prescribe that in detail. Who is it prescribing to? Veda Vyasa is asking. Is it prescribing it to the Manas or the Antakarana? No. Why should we prescribe Vidhis and Nishedas to Jadas? No. It is prescribed to the Jivas so that they follow and go towards salvation. So that is a simple explanation to show that all these actions are only relevant for the Jivas, not for Jadas such as Manas. So Karta Shastra Artavatvat is one sutra which gives you an idea that it is the Jiva that is the doer. But the same Vedic philosophy also tells us that the Jiva is also a non-doer. Okay, we have done this verse in Rig Veda, right? Rupam Rupam Pratirupo Babhuvaha Tadasya Rupam Pratichakshanaya Indro Mayabihi Purarupayate Yuktahi Asya Harayaha Shatadasha. So this Bimba Pratibimba relationship between the object and the image, and we have done this a number of times in our forum. But just to quickly summarize, only when the object is tying the tie, the image appears to be tying the tie. The image is actually not doing any action in this example. It is only the object that is doing the example. The image is not doing anything. Such is the relationship between Brahman and Jiva. So that is one way of looking at it, that the Jiva is non-doer from a Rig Veda perspective when you look at in a different angle. So how do you resolve this? The answer is given by Acharya. Swatantram Aswatantram cha dvividam tattvamishyate swatantro Bhagavan Vishnu. Only God is independent, all others are dependent. And what are there? We know from Shvetashvatar Upanishad, right? Deva, Nya, and Agnya. Nya and Agnya are dependent to Deva. So Nya is the Jivas. And Jivas are dependent on the Paramatma. So that is how you resolve that equation. Yes, Jiva is a doer. Yes, Jiva is also non-doer because he is a dependent doer. And our Guru Veda Vyasa in the Kartrutva Adhikaranam, he gives a very practical example for us to think about this. Yatacha Taksha Ubayata. It is like the way we do our actions is very similar to a carpenter. A carpenter is making a furniture, right? But he is not doing it independently in the sense that there is a master or somebody who says, please make a chair. He is giving him instruction, and this carpenter is then doing the action of getting a chair done. A skilled carpenter is working for an employer, of course, an agent within the means at his disposal. At the same time, he is bound to act by the employer in respect of any alterations or modifications in what he has been asked to do. In the same way, Jiva is an agent in one sense and a dependent one in another. Okay, so we need to keep these two sides of this coin about the doership of jivas, that he is a dependent doer. Yeah, so this example is useful for us to think about this. Yeah, about how a jiva does its action. Yeah, so contemplate on this, because then you will understand why is it that we don't have any jurisdictions on karma pala. Because that is not in our jurisdiction at all, because it's the Paramatma who is independently controlling everything. So the doership of Jiva, yes, he is a doer, but he is also a non-doer. But the key message there is, he is a dependent doer. So once we understand that he is a dependent doer, then there is a big philosophical question that Saint Augustine of Hippo and Epicurus had asked as to why is some folks doing bad and some folks doing good? Why is somebody rich and why is somebody poor, and etc. Is God Vaishamya Nairgranya? Is he partial and cruel? And Vedavyasa again resolves this with an important sutra called Adrishta Niyaman. So here is a key idea of Vedic philosophy that will help us understand that the actions that we do, although Paramatma is the independent regulator of all the actions that we do, but the karmic imprints of those actions happens to us, not to Paramatma. It will happen on our Linga Sharira. Remember our Linga Sharira. That is where the karmic imprints happens. And how does this whole system works? How does God allow a jiva to do a particular action? Vedavyasa says there are three criteria. Jiva swabhava, anadi jiva swabhava, anadi karma, and purushakya prayatna. So these are the three criteria that Paramatma takes and allows the jivas to play out their destinations. So purushakya prayatna, that is individual efforts. So we all have to do some individual efforts for our destination. And the type of individual efforts that we do is actually determined by our anadi karmas that we have been carrying for endless lives and whatever we have been asked to carry out in this life. So that influences the purushakya prayatna that we do. Then the core question is, why is it that anadi karma, why is some souls, when I take my car and go to the T junction, why is it that some souls take the left turn, whereas the others take the right turn? Why do they do it? Jiva swabhava. So it is based on these three criteria that God dispenses the fruits of actions of what we do. So if we understand this, if we understand that our actions are all based on these three criteria, and that we understand that we are not independent doers, but we are dependent doers, and once we ingrain this in our head, this basic philosophical rules of Vedas, then the concept of karma yoga, karma sannyasa, karma tyaga, everything flows very easily because we are dependent stuff. Yeah, it is exactly like this classroom where we have different kids writing the exam. The question paper is still the same, but different kids write the exam differently and they all get different marks. That is exactly our position. We are in this examination called the samsara. We have been given this question paper. And each soul here, based on its own swabhava, answers the question and gets either 100 marks or gets 0 marks. It is not the exam board's problem. It is not exam board's mistake if somebody gets 0 and another person gets 100. No, it is our own swabhava, anadi karma, and purushakya prayatna that ultimately determines what is the doership of souls. And when we understand this, we understand that Paramatma is allowing everything to happen. And he is asango hi evam purushaha. He is not attached to anything. He allows everything to carry on. Even for those everything to happen, his grace is required. Without his grace, nothing can move. We are in that sense like a puppet, but we are moving. But our puppets are based on our own swabhavas that things are happening. Okay, so this is a core idea of Vedic philosophy that Vedavyasa has settled in Kartrutva Adhikaranam in the second adhyaya, third subsection. Go and check this out. So then, of course, there is the 19th verse, which I will skip for lack of time. And I'll just summarize. It is proclaimed in the Vedic Sankhya Shastra that knowledge, action, and the doer are of just 3 types according to their innate nature. Hear about this. That is where the Jiva Swabhava comes in, and Krishna then talks about all the various things that these souls do. Thank you, Sureshji. Over to Pragnesh.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Am I allowed to share the slides myself, or you are going to run, Madhuji?
I can do it because then I'll have to let me
Play
try.
the music. Yeah.
Hang on, make host. Yeah, I'll make you host. Yes,
Thank you.
Pragnesh, go for it.
Thank you. You will play the music for 20 seconds.
Yes.
In the interest of time, we'll reduce it to 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Are you able to see and hear me well?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. So we have got 11 questions, and each question there will be music for 20 seconds. Some questions may have more than one. Please play the music, Madhuji.
Yeah. So we got a few answers coming out.
Sorry, I am unable to look at this. Can you or Sureshji moderate those, please?
Yeah. Suresh, go for it. Can you see it or can I do it?
I can't see that because I'm.
Okay, no worries. So we got Pratibha.
Madhuji, if you can do it, please.
Yeah,
It's
sure,
difficult
sure.
for me to see.
No problem. So Pratibha Acharya is saying Moksha Sannyasa Yoga.
Thank you. And what does it mean? Part B question, answer. I couldn't hear the music, so.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think it's the Pragneshji, the problem here is I'll try and place the music. I hope others are hearing it. Suresh, does it come out all right?
No, Madhu, I wasn't able to hear either.
Okay, no worries. So some IT issues, but anyway, I'll count 20 seconds, Pragnesh. We'll keep trying with the music. Maybe I've muted. Let me check this out. Okay, so Pratibhaji, do you want to come in and say what does it mean, please?
It's a perfection of renunciation and surrender, it says.
Thank you. That's a perfect answer. So yes, it is. The answer first one was correct. Moksha Sannyas Yoga, and the answer B is yoga through the perfection of renunciation and surrender. And here is the hint. I have given you some images to learn through the typical sannyasi and the typical tyagi. You are all familiar with the story. In childhood, we learnt about Harishchandra, who had given up everything, even though he was in sansar. And then we all, of course, know about the sannyasi, Swami Vivekananda, my hero. Thank you. The next question is, by which name, I hope you are all able to see and hear me, Arjuna addresses Lord Krishna. Now there was a hint given in Sureshji's discourse.
It's a Hrishikesha, no?
Slightly different. Good attempt.
Harisudana.
Mahabahu and Keshi Nisudana.
Yes, that's the correct.
Yeah,
Thank
he
you.
said
I'm
about
playing the
something
music
about
now.
Vayudev. I think he said something about Vayudev and
So,
giving energy to Vayudev, and that's why it's Keshi Nisudana. And other meaning is he killed the demon called Keshi.
yes. Thank you very much. So here is an example. The picture itself gives the hint that there was a demon in the form of horse, and Lord Krishna pushes his fist into the horse's mouth and killed. So you are absolutely right. So the answer is it is Keshi Nisudan. This was on the right bottom part of Surajji's slide, and because he killed the demon Keshi. Thank you very much. Now I have got a music playing. Let's see whether my music plays or not.
Ragnesh, it should work. I'm surprised. Okay, next question. Do you want to move to the next question, please?
Yes, thank you. So question third, what is the, I know this is not the best example, but I thought little bit of fun. So it's, what is the difference between sannyas and tyaga?
10 seconds music and then we'll.
Okay. According to the second sloka, I don't know whether there was an answer.
So we got answer from Deval. And Deval is saying, okay, so that's for the previous question. So can we have somebody quickly nip in and tell us what sannyas and tyaga is, please? Okay, go for it, Pragnesh.
So yes, so there was a lot of discussion by Srinivasanji about sannyasa and tyaga, and in the bottom part of his slide, he had mentioned about tyaga is the relinquishing of fruits of action, while sannyasa is the renunciation of action motivated by desires. This was in sloka number 2. The next question is, it has got 3 parts, and I'm going to help you with some examples here. There is a hint and there's a music playing.
Yeah.
Any answers coming?
Yeah,
Sushruti and Nitaji, you got it right. Thank you.
Yeah, so they've said yajna, dana, and tapa.
Fourth
Thank you.
shloka, fifth shloka, sorry.
Is that the answer to B or C?
In which shloka is this fact first mentioned? I think it's 5. B.
Sorry, you get
That was the other, yes.
yajna, dana, tapa. That was the correct answer, and I'm sure you
Yeah.
all know where I have stolen this slide from. This is our regular Sunday feast that I have stolen this slide from. I keep some of the delicacies served every Sunday in my pocket and bring it out now and again. Thank you, Madhuji. So we need to continue using these 3 actions to purify the mind. This was again mentioned by Srinivasanji in his presentation. And it was first mentioned in 3rd sloka, in the 2nd line, as it is mentioned. And then it again appeared, Nitaji, you were right. It again appeared in the 5th sloka, but it first appeared in the 3rd sloka. Thank you. So then I move on to the next.
How many types of karmas do we do? So you got 10 seconds to answer this.
The hint in the picture is just for a partial distraction, because most of us are in medical profession here and we are very familiar with the word ADL, but that's not where we are looking for.
3 types of karmas, isn't it?
Sorry, how many you said?
3 types of karmas we do.
Yes, partially. As I said, there is a hint here in the picture, but it's not.
It's 5. There are
Yes,
5 there.
thank
So
you.
we got some coming from Vani ji, Kamya, and let me go, sorry, it disappeared, one sec. So Vani ji is saying Kamya, Nishkama.
Yes. Thank you. So I will go to the next one. Answer is 5. And this was again discussed partially in Srinivasanji's presentation. So now there are matching, extended matching question, EMQ. So please match the following. So there are 5 types of karmas as mentioned on the left side, and their day-to-day meaning is on the right side. So please mix and match. I'll play the music.
Yeah, so we got some answers coming through.
Yeah, this time I will give a longer time. I have now got the clock also, so I can time and play the music.
So Pratibha ji, okay, lots of answers. Right, so let's, okay, very good. So thanks for folks for typing in those answers very quickly. So Pratibha ji is saying 1B, and Sushrut has also said 1B. Pragnesh ji, is that correct?
Yes, 1B is correct. I can
Oh.
see lots of answer coming.
I'll go through this. 4C,
Yes, 4C is correct.
3E,
Correct.
that's from Danush Sadhu. Welcome Danush for our forum. Next one is Deval is saying 4C.
Thank you. Yes, correct. I have
And
given
then
the answers now.
Pratibha 3E, Sushrut 3E, yeah, and 5D from Sushrut.
5 is actually A, occasional duties. Thank you very much.
Right.
So next, I will give the next question. And I will give 10 seconds. This was again discussed earlier, and there are 3 slokas. I'll give hint that Suresh ji had shown 7, 8, and 9 are the answers.
Yeah, okay. I can't see any answers in the chat. Maybe perhaps somebody wants to unmute and give us the answer, please.
Any answers? We discussed this. Suresh ji showed the
Karma
3.
Sannyasa, Sushrut is saying.
Suresh ji showed the sloka 7, 8, 9 after Srinivasan ji finished, and 7, 8, 9 had. These are the 3 gunas we talk about.
That the Sattvic, Rajasic, Tamasic. What is that? A sannyasa? Sattvic, sannyasa, Rajasic? No.
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, okay.
Tamasic, Rajasic, and Sattvic. Yes. Thank you very much. And as I was mentioning, it is here mentioned in the Tamas here, Rajas here, and in the 9th, Satviko. So these are the 3 types of sannyasa that is mentioned in this chapter. Now I will go to the next one. We are halfway through, and I'll give you some time. 10 seconds.
Okay.
Any answers? I know this was not directly based on the presentations today, but because you all have been ardent student of this discourses, this word keeps coming in our discussions. Okay, shall I go for the answer?
Go for it.
So one is not a karma yogi, is called karmi, and there is also another word called akarmi. but for this answer, it is karmi. And the three types of phalam they get is anishta, ishta, and misra. So anishtam, ishtam, and misram, as it is highlighted in black here. This was based on the stanza 12. The next one is, we discussed this, and I give you 15 seconds this time. Neetaji dwelt on this a lot, and there was a response from Pratibhaji also. Thank you. I can see answers coming. Yes, thank you. So yes, everybody seems to have enjoyed the rice. They were very delicious. I can see that. And it was basmati tilda with no particular commercial interest. But thank you very much. I'm foodie, so I had to bring that thing in. But you can see the 5 components as we have been discussing. Neetaji very well gave us homework also to do. In everything we do now, we have to think of these 5 stages. Thank you. And last 2 questions remaining. This is the answer based on this sloka. Pratibha ji has written detailed answers. Thank you very much,
Yeah, she
Pratibha
got
ji.
it all right.
Thank you. I think she would get the medal for today because she was very active in the previous.
Yeah, yeah. Veena ji can send her rice pongal.
Thank you. For me, lemon rice. Thank you. Next one is another mix and match question. This is slightly detailed and not as we have skilled in my educational hat. I would say that this is the last stage on the pyramid of the Millers. It shows, not and does, rather than just knowing or knows how or shows how. I'll give 5 extra seconds.
Okay, tough one, but we'll see what the answers are.
Okay, let me see. There are some answers coming. 1B, 4B, 2D. Thank you, 4D. Let's see what the answers are. So the answers are here. And it is based on sloka 16 and 17. So some of the Sanskrit words are copied right from the sloka. This also gives us an opportunity of understanding the etymology that we have been learning through regular discourses by Madhuji every Sunday. So this is what I have tried to help here. So these are the answers. So 4B is the correct answer and 1D is the correct. Jnani's and Jnani's perspective is explained here.
Excellent.
So nibadhyate, na nibadhyate is at the bottom of the sloka, and here I have taken kartaratman kevalam. So there are direct copies of this. And the last question, am I allowed to go to the last one?
Yeah.
Thank you. This you touch base, Madhuji, and those who are observant, you made it simple from 5 to 3 with a triangle, with a red. These are the hints. So I'll play the music and give 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So there is answer coming from Pratibhaji. Jiva Swabhava, Anadi Karma, Yes. The answer is, the first one is known as Jnana Triputi, where Jnana, Jnaya and Jnata. So this was the first triangle on the left. And then the next one is part B, Karta, Karana and Karma, which is called Karma Triputi. This is based on the sloka 18. Jnanam Jnam Parajnata Trividha Karma Chodana Karanam Karma Karteti Trividha Karma Sangraha. Thank you very much. That finishes the quiz. I will stop sharing this and we open the forum for discussions. Thank you very much. And I mute myself.
Excellent.
Thank you, Pragnesh ji.
Pragnesh, you need to.
Sorry, Madhu, I just jumped in.
Yeah, no worries. So you want to go for it, Suresh, because I'm not able to make you host.
If you just put the deck back, Madhu, just one slide, just to finish.
Yeah.
And while Madhu gets Madhuji gets the deck back on, sincere apologies. We've taken way more time than we actually wanted to in this session. I had some difficulties here with electricity and thunderstorm, etc. So attention was divided. But anyway, thank you all for your patience. I think we've gone through a third of the discussion of chapter 18. The next session of chapter 18, we will discuss the three gunas and their impact. And there are a few other shlokas which completes the discussion of the three gunas. So we'll dedicate the session for just three gunas. And in the third session, we will talk about duty.
Okay, so I think we got some IT issues here with Suresh, I think. Can you hear me, Pragnesh?
Yes, I can. I can hear.
Okay, hear me? Sorry, I just lost connectivity for a minute.
Yeah, so we lost you for a minute. If you want to...
So with that, so yeah, I was just saying we will do the three gunas in the next session, and with the last session we will do duty and the concluding remarks from Krishna and Arjuna's reply. So that's the way we will structure the further discussions. We will try to contain it within the allocated time for the subsequent sessions. We did exceed the time significantly today, and apologies for that. Questions, I guess we don't have time for it, but please feel free. The idea was to go back and provide context to the way the shlokas have been summarized in chapter 18. So it's a different kind of an exercise that we have been into, and it's a learning session. And therefore, feel free to give your feedback if there's a different way in which we could do it more crisper. Any questions, any other thoughts that you would want to share, please put it on the WhatsApp, or you could reach out to Madhuji or myself, and we'll try and see how to incorporate them in the next sessions. Madhu, any closing remarks from you before we end the session?
Yeah, I was going to say, great session, of course, Suresh. Thank you so much to Suresh, Neeta ji, and Srinivasan ji for chipping in and giving an excellent contribution for part A of chapter 18. And the key message that I want to send out there is we need more volunteers to join us for part B and part C. So please do feed into the Sahiti group if you want to contribute to these sessions. Okay. On that note, so Suresh, if you want to just take us through Om, and then we close today's session.
Yeah, thanks. So we will close today's session. Om Matar me Matarishwan Pitalatulla Guru Bhatvariштapta Bandhu Swamin Sarvantaratman Najara Jaraita Janma Mrityamayana Govinde Dehi Bhaktim Bhavati Cha Bhagavan Nurjitam Nirnimittam Nirvyajam Nishchalam Sadgunagana Bruhatim Shashwatim Asudeva Sri Krishna Arpanamastu Hari Thank you.
Wonderful. So next week we'll catch up on our onward journey on Isha Upanishad, verse 9. So we will tackle verse 9 from next week. So see you all next Sunday. Hare Krishna. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.